Muy buenas noches, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Everybody having a good time here in DC? And those who came from out of state, like myself, flew in from Miami to rainy weather, a lot different from when I was here a couple of weeks ago to see the beautiful cherry blossoms. But anyway, you brightened up my day, so thank you for being here tonight. Muchas gracias y muy bienvenidos, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Maldiv's 2014 Washington, D.C. Awards Gala. Of course, I'm honored to be your hostess this evening. And on behalf of Maldiv, we thank each and every one of you for joining us. You know, tonight would not be possible without the support of so many of you. I'm sure many of you know the story of Maldiv, but just in case you don't, here it is. In 1968, a group of brave lawyers united to form Maldiv. This was a historic, courageous move because at the time, the Mexican-American community was being subjected to blatant discriminatory treatment, and it wasn't easy. But Maldiv immediately began to work to combat these injustices. And although we have made significant gains in the area of civil rights in this country, we still have a long road ahead of us. Maldiv is the Latino legal voice for civil rights in America. We are very grateful that we have them to lead the fight in protecting the rights of Latinos throughout our great nation. Maldiv is committed to taking on those that prey against the vulnerability of hardworking immigrants. And just last week, in fact, Maldiv prevailed in its efforts to ensure access to court in an ongoing class action lawsuit filed on behalf of employees, or carwacheros, that's the way that they like to be called, against 3 car washes operating in Los Angeles and in Santa Monica, California. Carwacheros, it's a new word. The Court of Appeals denied the carwacheros' attempt to throw the lawsuit out of court and instead have a private arbitrator decide the case. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Maldiv's Washington, D.C. Regional Counsel, Jim Kadima. Jim has built his public interest career in authoring and lobbying for civil rights and civil liberties legislation at the federal, at the state, and also at the local level. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Maldiv's Regional Counsel, Jim Kadima.
So good evening, buenas noches. It's my pleasure, gracias. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2014 Maldiv DC Awards Gala. Our program this evening will celebrate the careers of several accomplished individuals who dedicated themselves to safeguarding the civil rights of the Latino community. As you'll see shortly through video clips and accolades, we owe them a great deal for their selflessness and their courage. Before we move forward and focus on their good works, I'd like to say a few words about the work of Maldiv in DC over this past year. So let's begin with immigrant rights. Since last year, Maldiv DC has fought for the rights of immigrants through all three branches of federal government. We have closed or nearly closed out our court challenges to Alabama's and South Carolina's anti-immigrant state laws. The good news is the clones of Arizona's unconstitutional SB 1070 are quickly and fastly dying off. In turn, we have recently filed suit against law enforcement on the eastern shore of Maryland for police misconduct targeting a mixed-status Latino family. So we're going to new places, including the remote parts of Maryland, to ensure the rights of Latinos are protected in the courts. In the U.S. Senate, Maldiv has worked to amend and improve S-744. That would be the 1,200-page bipartisan bill of the Senate that was passed last June by 68-32 roll call. That was incredibly tough work. Our legislative work, however, continues in the U.S. House as we engage House leaders who are at present, despite all the funerals we've had about immigration reform, they're currently working to undertake various immigration bills that will be produced later this year. More importantly, Maldiv continues to lead in denouncing the deportation record of the last 4 years, and we press for greater relief for undocumented immigrants. The administration's deportation record, nearing 2 million by some estimates, is one that is uniquely borne by the Latino community. Recent polling shows that 1 in 4 Latinos personally know someone who's been deported or removed. And 98% of those deported are of Latin American descent. These record-breaking numbers, no matter how they're dissected, are resulting in the unnecessary dismantling and fracturing of our Latino families and communities. This simply must stop. The solution rests with both Congress and the White House. As to voting rights, the Supreme Court last summer in Shelby County v. Holder overturned the coverage formula for the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That would be the law's trigger for certain states and localities to undergo federal approval before changing electoral procedures. Our Washington office is leading the charge on recently introduced bicameral bill known as the Voting Rights Amendments Act of 2014. This bill would go a long way to undo the harm done by Shelby County, but there is more work to be had. MALDEF, along with the broader civil rights community, is working to strengthen the bill even more with an additional coverage formula that we are calling Known Practices Coverage, or KPC for short. KPC would ensure that newly emerging voter communities just reaching power, which in many places around this country are Latino and Asian American voters, are again protected by the VRA. In closing, my belated thanks and boundless appreciation to all the Maldefians that make our work in DC possible. I'd like to thank Adam Fernandez, Andrea Centeno, Amy Pedersen, Jose Magaña Salgado, Lorena Mares, Maribel Hernandez Rivera, and Tico Almeida. Again. Yeah. Again, welcome to the 2014 Gala. Thank you, and enjoy what promises to be a great program.
Thank you so much, Jim, and we are very grateful to you and your staff, of course, for the important and impactful work that you're doing right here in our nation's capital. And of course, to all of you, by your attendance here tonight and your ongoing support are demonstrating your belief in the abiding principles of equity, inclusion, and civil rights so critical historically and to our nation's future. Thank you all for joining us, of course, and for acknowledging all of MALDEF's staff members, past and present, in Washington and nationwide for their enduring work. And of course, MALDEF looks forward to your continued partnership. Well, now I'm very happy to introduce someone who has a huge responsibility, and of course I'm talking about the chair of MALDEF's Board of Directors. She knows firsthand how deeply rooted the values of access, equity, and excellence are to the board's work in supporting education, employment, immigration, and voting rights. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome MALDEF's board chair, Charlene Aguilar.
Thank you all for joining us here tonight. I'm honored to be the chair of MALDEF. I'm humbled to serve on its board with a cadre of exemplary women and men I respect and admire, all dynamic, transformative leaders dedicated to MALDEF. I'm motivated by the mission of the organization. We're motivated, and we stand witness to the vision, power, and leadership inspired in its president and general counsel, Tom Sines, a champion who works hand in hand and with an amazingly talented and committed staff. Since its founding in 1968, MALDEF has been the nation's leading Latino legal civil rights organization. MALDEF promotes every day social justice in the areas of education, employment, immigrant rights, and political access. MALDEF strives to bring more and more Latinos into the mainstream of American life, providing better educational opportunities, encouraging participation in all aspects of civil, and offering a positive vision for the future. Unique to MALDEF is its approach that combines advocacy, communications, educational outreach, and litigation strategies to promote full, active Latino inclusion in all aspects of American society. And litigation in particular continues to be one of the most powerful vehicles we have to ensure that our Latino communities enjoy the same rights grounded in our Constitution as other Americans. In recent years, MALDEF has won key victories against local and state immigration ordinances and challenged racial profiling by law enforcement agencies. Jim Kadima mentioned some of these. I'm going to go over a few others. For example, we were victorious in the landmark case Arizona versus the Intertribal Council of Arizona, in which the United States Supreme Court struck down Arizona's unwarranted restriction on voter registration, concluding that Arizona's Proposition 200 must yield to the National Voter Registration Act. Due to the hard work and ability of our MALDEF staff, Arizona and those states that choose to follow irresponsible policymaking received a strong message that their illegal practices will not go unchallenged. In another matter, MALDEF's work led us to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, striking down an anti-immigrant discriminatory ordinance in Farmers Branch, Texas, that would have required every prospective tenant to obtain a city license and would have prohibited landlords from renting to immigrants that the city deemed unlawfully present. Here in D.C., on Capitol Hill every year, every day or every other day, Jim, right? MALDEF leads dozens of meetings with leaders of both parties, including immigration reform, speaking loudly on behalf of the Latino community in support of a much-needed path to legalization for millions of peaceful, law-abiding, hardworking, and tax-paying immigrants. From sponsoring the Trust Act in California to limiting deportations of immigrants with no criminal record, to fighting for the right to driver's licenses of immigrant youth authorized to remain in the United States under the Deferred Action for Arrivals, DACA, program in Arizona and Nebraska, MALDEF's work continues. Just last week, as Maria Elena had mentioned, in Southern California, MALDEF prevailed, securing access to the court for a class action suit representing carwacheros, continuing to fight for fair employment practices in LA for those robbed of fair pay under conditions without rest or meal breaks. MALDEF has also been at the center of discussions to develop strategies in direct response to the disgraceful decision of the 5-person conservative majority of the Supreme Court in the case of Shelby versus Holder earlier this year. This decision greatly weakens Section 5, a major provision of the Voting Rights Act. MALDEF's litigators continue to work tirelessly to make sure that hard-won rights guaranteeing Latinos access to registration, voting, and representation will not be denied. Our challenges remain significant, and we thank you for standing at our side as we fight for the rights of Latinos to work, to vote, to thrive across the United States. We gather this evening to celebrate the careers and accomplishments of some impressive leaders and role models for social justice in our community. They have lived lives that share our goals and have directly contributed to meeting those challenges. They have dedicated themselves to safeguarding and expanding the civil rights of our Latino communities. On behalf of our board, I want to once again say thank you for joining us tonight and enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much, Charlene. That's very kind of you. And thank you, of course, for your board leadership. MALDEF has taken great strides, of course, under your watch. And Charlene also has a full-time job, believe it or not. She has a husband, and she has 3 kids. So that's a power woman. Que viva la mujer. Un aplauso. Before we move on to introduce our keynote speaker, I just want to mention a case that we reported on at Univision News this week that reminded me a lot of the case that you mentioned that you might want to take a look at. In North Carolina, a small town where Mexicans are not being allowed to marry. They're not being given marriage licenses because their passport cannot be confirmed with the Mexican embassy, according to them, or the Mexican consulate at the time, which means that their children that are born there can not be registered as U.S. citizens because their parents are not recognized as existing. So that's a very interesting case that MALDEF might want to take a look at. So now it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker. On that note, the Secretary of the United States of the Department of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack. Secretary Vilsack has a distinguished career. He serves as the nation's 30th Secretary of Agriculture. As leader of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, he is working hard to strengthen the American agricultural economy, to build rural communities, and to create new markets for the tremendous innovation of rural America. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with a big round of applause, Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack. It is a pleasure to have you with us tonight.
Thank you very, very much. I learned something tonight. I learned that having a husband is a full-time job. I'm sure that my wife would agree with that. As I sat here this evening, I was almost tempted to have my general counsel put my resignation letter in so I could go back to doing what I did for many, many years, which is to practice law. The record and the commitment that you all have to civil rights, to providing opportunities in the courts, to honor those who are here tonight, who have fought so hard and so long, it really is an impressive and inspiring organization. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank those who are here because you have financed and helped to fund this important work. I hope that you understand and appreciate the difference you're making in the lives of all of these people who are impacted and affected by this litigation. It truly is inspiring, and it's an amazing organization. So I honestly feel honored and privileged to be here tonight. As I was thinking about what I could say tonight, my thoughts actually went back to McAllen, Texas. In 1996, my son Jess was a senior in high school, and he and I decided that we would take a father-son trip through an organization called Global Volunteers. And the purpose of our trip was to spend a week together and to volunteer our services. We went to McAllen, Texas because they had an opportunity there to work with migrant farm worker families who were in need of decent housing. I remember distinctly, and will always remember as long as I live, walking into the place where we would have dinner each night after our work on the homes. When we first entered this rather austere-looking building on the outside, I was captivated by an extraordinary mural that had been painted on the walls of this gathering location. It was the history of migrant farm workers. And what struck me was the first panel. The first panel of migrant farm workers working in the fields bent over and using a very short hoe. I asked about that. I said, tell me, what is this depicting? Because where I came from, I had no knowledge of this. Fruits and vegetables were something that came from a grocery store that I just assumed were relatively easy to grow and easy to provide. And I was told that back in the day, those who oversaw these workers used the short hose so that they would be assured that people weren't taking a break, that they were continuing to do this back-breaking work, that they'd always be able to see who wasn't working. And this mural basically depicted over time essentially the lengthening of that hoe. You know, unfortunately today there are still people who are operating with a short hoe. Maybe not figuratively or literally, but I think of all of those who are interested in being part of this great country, who have come here in search of opportunity, who believe that they owed the moral responsibility to their family to take care of their food needs and their housing needs and their clothing needs by working back-breaking work in the fields of this country. And maybe a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, they came to this country without all of the proper documentation they needed. But they came with the hope and belief that by coming here, they could make a better life for themselves and their family. Well, fast forward now to 2014, and here we struggle in the greatest democracy on earth, and I would argue the greatest country on earth. We have these people who have worked extraordinarily hard, who have provided for my family and your family. And we have been saying to them for far too long, we can't figure out a way, we can't do the hard political work of creating an immigration system that works. Works not just for you, not just for your family, but for the entire country. You see, immigration reform is not just about the 11 million people who are here. It isn't just about their families. It's about every single person who lives in this country. Because we will all benefit. We will all benefit from a system that's repaired, a system that is no longer broken, a system that explains to those who have been here there is indeed a pathway that you can earn and should earn to citizenship and full participation. By bringing folks out of the shadows, this country will be stronger and better. You may wonder why the Secretary of Agriculture is all that wound up about immigration. Well, I'll tell you. Because this country isn't recognizing its fullest potential when it comes to agriculture. It can't. I've talked to too many growers across the United States who simply are not growing all they could grow and not harvesting everything they could harvest because there's no certainty of the workforce. They simply do not have enough hands. And I hear some folks say, well, they should let Americans do the job. Really? Well, you know, the United Farm Workers actually tested that theory several years ago. Put an ad in the paper, said wanted. This was right in the middle of the recession. 10,000 workers, $10 an hour. They got thousands of initial hits on the website. Then they described the work. 20 people showed up. By the end of the day, 2 people were still there. You know, this is the story of America. Difficult, backbreaking work done by those who aren't afraid of backbreaking work, who understand that there is a reason for them to work as hard as they do. The notion that if you do, and you sacrifice, and you save, the next generation, your children and grandchildren, will have a better life. It's what this country has been built on. And the reality is that by the failure of the House to take up comprehensive immigration reform, we are basically saying, for the first time in the history of this country, that we're no longer interested in that story. We no longer want that generation of folks coming in willing to work hard, to sacrifice, to save, to make a better life for their family. That's harmful to all of us. Failing to produce everything we're capable of producing means that consumers don't have choice, that consumers have higher food prices, that consumers aren't going to have the extraordinary diversity of food that we've enjoyed in this country, and we won't be able to export as much to the rest of the world, and there are jobs connected to that as well. It's one of the reasons why, if you have comprehensive immigration reform, you put people to work. You reduce the deficit. You strengthen the Social Security system. You make a stronger America. So I'm here tonight to tell you that we at USDA are committed to immigration reform because we understand and appreciate that folks are still working with a short hoe. And we believe it's right to lengthen that hoe. And I know you do too. I do realize that as the Secretary of Agriculture, I am between you and dinner, which is not a good place for the Secretary of Agriculture to be. But I do want to say just a word about my department. When I got this job, I didn't really understand fully and completely what it involved. I didn't know that it had a sordid civil rights history, but I found out pretty quickly that it did. And we've been working over the last 5 years to make a difference. And let me just give you 2 examples. Our Forest Service has a lot of land, and a lot of people visit that land and use that land. And from time to time, folks need questions answered about where to go and what to do and how to access the various services that are in the Forest Service. And from time to time, people who visit our forests don't speak English. So in the past, when that occurred, our Forest Service thought it would be appropriate to get translation services, which is the right thing to do. But they used the border security personnel to do that. That's not particularly sensitive. We've changed that. We don't use the border security personnel, as good people as they might be. We have neutral translators so that we don't send the wrong message. We want people to be welcomed in our force. We don't want them to be frightened by them. That's one example. We also know that the substantial amount of poverty that exists in America today isn't limited to inner city America. I appreciate that there is poverty there, and it's deep, and it hurts. But far too often, people don't realize the poverty that exists in rural America. Of the over 700 counties in this country that have been persistently poor with poverty rates in excess of 20%, 538 of them are in rural America. And it's our job at USDA to provide assistance and help to those who are suffering, those who are challenged, those who are seeking a way out of poverty. But here's the problem. We have all of these programs, and we've made an effort to make sure that they're appropriately translated into Spanish, and we've made all of those sort of superficial efforts to try to get information to folks in the sense that, okay, you can read it in Spanish, but you don't know who to go to, and you don't know who the person is you're talking to, and you don't know how to apply, and you don't have the match, and you don't have all the complexities of participating in government programs. And we realized that because of that, few people in those persistently poor areas participated in those programs, so that just guaranteed that they would remain persistently poor. We wanted to do something about that. And so we created a thing called Strike Force. And the theory behind Strike Force is we go where there is persistent poverty, the worst in the country. We're now in 20 states, over 700 counties. And we tell our team at USDA to work collaboratively with community building organizations in the area, because we understand that we've got to build trust in those areas that have been persistently poor. We've got to do and go the extra mile, because these folks have been disenfranchised for far too long. So we sit down with that community building organization, we have them help us identify the needs of the community. And then we essentially guarantee success, the utilization of our programs. To date, in those 700 counties, we've invested nearly $10 billion. We're building homes, we're providing financial assistance for those homes, to buy those homes, we're providing food assistance and nutrition assistance, we're helping farmers and ranchers in those locations with conservation, we're helping to create business opportunities and job growth. We've got a long way to go, but we understand what our mission is at USDA. It's to help lengthen the handle of that hoe. So I appreciate the work that you all do. I want you to know you've got a partner at USDA. And for those who are here tonight, there is one thing you could do. For those of you who are corporations and entities that are in support of this great organization, you could take one further step. You see, when school lets out in a few months, there will literally be 20 million children who currently are receiving free and reduced lunch at schools across the United States that may not have access to a decent meal. We've challenged ourselves at USDA to increase the number of summer feeding efforts by 10 million meals. We served 168 million meals last year. We want to get to 178 or maybe even higher than that this year. But we need help from community partners. We need your help to reach out into organizations, whether faith-based organizations, community building organizations, service organizations, professional organizations that would sponsor feeding sites where the kids are. Because in this great country, not only should we have comprehensive immigration reform, we should never, ever have a child who goes to bed at any time, in any day, in any month, hungry. That just shouldn't be. You all are extraordinarily lucky here today. The vast majority of you essentially know your heritage. If I ask you, where did you come from? You'd be able to tell me. You'd be able to probably tell me where your father came from and your mother came from, whether your grandfather came from or your grandfather. You may be able to go back multiple generations. I can't say that because I started out life as an orphan. And I have always been extraordinarily jealous of those who know their heritage, those who can go back generation after generation after generation with great pride. People in this room who are supporting the litigative efforts and the educational efforts of this organization are fundamentally changing the lives of people every single day. And you're doing it because of where you came from and who you are. I know you're never going to lose that. But I leave you just hoping that you always appreciate how blessed and lucky you are to know where you've come from. Let's make sure with our collective work together that future generations of those 11 million who are here today say with pride, I come from America. My father came from America. And we worked to bring justice and strength to this great country. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Vilsack. Thank you for those very strong words. I don't know if you noticed, but if you notice at the center of your table, you have these delicious desserts in lieu of flowers. And I found out today that Maldives saved $40,000 in this evening by using that instead of flowers. Isn't that a great way to raise funds and be frugal? Another thing I learned today that was really interesting, I'm sure that many of you remember Marilyn Monroe singing Happy Birthday, Mr. President. Do you remember that incident? Did you know that that happened on this stage right here? I just found that out today. That's pretty interesting. That's a bit of news today. Anyway, I'm sure that all of you, besides having your presence here and supporting this organization with your presence, if I can have your attention, please, because you're going to be very interested in this, especially if you have a cell phone. Okay, that works. There is a very innovative, new, simple way to give by using your cell phone. I know most of us use it to communicate with our teenage daughters, if you haven't, and you know what I mean. But it's very easy now to text a gift of any amount. Simply start a new text message using the number 41444. Then in the message, you enter Maldiv, a space, and then the amount you want to give and your name. Sample is on the screen. You see the screen there? So it's text 41444 in your message. In the message, put Maldiv, and then put the amount, and then put your name. You see it there? Okay. So what do we do? Oh, afterwards, of course, you're going to receive a text message in response with a link that you can click to fulfill your pledge. But right now, by entering your credit card information. So let's do it. I'm going to kick it off, okay? I'm going to start. Here's my cell phone. Everybody have their cell phone ready? Okay, let's see if it works. Let's hope so. Text message. I'm going to ignore my teenage daughter's text messages for now. So the number is 41444. New message. And 41444. Maldef. And then my name. And then, oh, I did it backwards. First the amount, and I'm going to put $500, and then my name, and send. Will it come up? Oh, mine came up. Emma Carrasco, $200. Emita. Did you know that Emma Carrasco, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for NPR, started her career at Maldev? She was an intern at Maldev many moons ago. Araceli, $1,000. Great. Teresa, ACU, $25. David Damien Figueroa, $200. Don Calloway, $100. Wow, that's really good. Raised $2,200 up to now, and the goal is $5,000. So we're almost halfway there. So keep on texting. Remember, it's 41444. Again, Emita Carrasco, Ramona Romero, myself. I was a little slow at texting. I haven't caught up with my daughters yet. Araceli, Teresa, and David Damien. And you can do it too. As you can see, it's fun, it's easy, and of course, it's for a good cause. So thank you for your support and for the support of Maldev to work to improve the quality of the life and to protect the rights of Latinos across the nation. We have more? Do you want to keep on donating? Okay, I know that dessert is delicious, but everybody has a cell phone, and I think everybody can donate. You don't have to donate $500 like myself or $1,000. You can donate $10, $20, $30, $50, whatever amount you want. And let's see if we can get some more people donating. Well, we already have 3,210, so it's going up. Fast, fast, fast. Let's see some more. Ingrid for $500. Thank you very much, Ingrid. Go Maldev. Great. Another $500. Kristen S., $10. $100 from Chris Espinosa. Thank you very much, Chris. Andres Castillo, $100. Daniel, $100. That's $3,500. I can't believe it. It's just a few minutes and we're already $4,000. Catherine Pino, $500. This is amazing. $500 from Todd. Another $100 from an anonymous donor. $4,600. I can't believe it. We're less than $400 away from meeting the goal of this evening, which is $5,000. This is pretty amazing. It's very easy. As you can see, it's all you need to do, one more time, in case you don't remember the text number. The text is 41444, and in the message, you write the name Maldev, and then your amount, and then your name. And so far, we have $4,610, and our goal is $5,000. So it's very easy to go up. It's only, what, 390? See, I did my math. Was that right? Yeah, that's right. Anyone else? 4,710. We're getting even closer to 4,810. Oh, this is amazing. This is really great. Jennifer Bonilla just donated $100. Jim Ferkadima, thank you, Jim, just donated $100. What is it? Harold Belen, $5,400. Congratulations. That was pretty amazing. And thank you so much for your commitment. Thank you so much for donating and for helping out. You can continue to do that all night. But for now, really, we want to concentrate on three very special people that I want to introduce in just a few minutes. As you know, Maldev's commitment to constitutional principle and humane values in all policies, including immigration, are reinforced by the ongoing example of our respected honorees. The wise and dedicated Honorable Ricardo Urbina, the creative, committed, and charming, may I add, Ibeliz Estrada, and our own inimitable and formidable Antonia Hernandez. So thank you. to all of you for helping us celebrate the achievements. So let's get started. Let's get started with our first honoree of this evening. She's someone I know very well. She's my colleague and my friend, and I'm delighted to be the one here to present her with this award. Since I'm not writing or reporting this evening, I feel very confident in saying that Ibeliz Estrada has been an integral part of the continued growth of Univision at every level that you can imagine. Ibeliz is Univision's Senior Vice President of Corporate and Community Relations. She is responsible for the overall development and coordination of community relations strategies for the company, including Univision, Telefutura Networks, Galavisión, the Univision Television Group, Univision Interactive Media, and Univision Radio. And she coordinates all philanthropic contributions and serves as a liaison between Univision and community organizations, of course, such as MALDEF. Ibeliz also plans, directs, supervises the execution of the company's national initiatives, such as citizenship and voter registration efforts and health and education projects. Most recently, Ibeliz developed and launched Univision Educación, a comprehensive multi-year national education initiative in partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the U.S. Department of Education, educators, and civic and community leaders from around the country. This initiative is aimed at improving academic achievement among K-12 Hispanic students with a specific focus on high school graduation and college readiness. In 2007, she worked with the National Association of Elected and Appointed Officials, NALEO, in an unprecedented national civic engagement campaign developed to inform, educate, and motivate Hispanics to participate in the American political dialogue, Ya es hora, Ciudadanía. I'm very proud and happy to be part of this movement and to be an official spokesperson, or official if you'd like to say. Ya es hora, Ciudadanía was done in collaboration with hundreds of Latinos serving organizations across the U.S. and mobilized more than 1 million eligible immigrants to apply for citizenship. And of course, we did that with MALDEF, we did that with NALEO, and we also did that with NCLR. In 2008, the campaign was honored with a Peabody Award. Ms. Estrada, or Ibeliz, was also responsible for the creation in 2003 of a multi-year cross-platform health initiative entitled Salud es Vida, Entérate. Lead a healthy life, get the facts, to promote healthy lifestyle and encourage the early detection and aggressive management of chronic health conditions affecting U.S. Hispanics. In 2004, Entérate was also honored with the Peabody Award, the first ever for a Spanish language broadcast company. So let's take a look at this video. Before we take a look at this video, please, I just want to add one more thing. I know that Ibeliz does this for a living and she gets paid to do what she does, but I can tell you on a personal note that she does this out of her own heart and that she truly feels a very close connection, and she's someone who truly cares about the organization that she works with and the people that she serves. Ibeliz, we're going to honor you with this video.
I think my first impression of Ibeliz is the same as it is now. Somebody who's intelligent, passionate, has great style and grace. You know, Ibeliz has been there for me. She's been a mentor, she's been an advisor. She's also been a partner and a supporter. Whenever I need somebody who's gonna give it to me straight or tell me when I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, I'll hear it from Ibeliz.
What's great about working with Ibeliz is that you sit down with her, you know she wants to help advance the cause. It's not a difficult sell at all, and it's just a matter of figuring out what's the best way for Univision and Ibeliz to bring their assets to bear to make a difference.
Ibeliz is a pillar at Univision and is a pillar for the Latino community. I think what drives Ibeliz Estrada is that real sense of commitment to community, that real sense that our community has the potential and power to drive so much in this country, and she really seeks to leverage Univision in a way that empowers the community to empower itself.
Her work has been very impactful, but I think the biggest thing is these campaigns like Ya es hora and the other campaigns that she's been able to focus the resources of Univision to address a problem that's really impacting our community and to make a change in behavior for perhaps hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Latinos across the country.
I think Ivelisse is very instrumental in making sure we pass on to the new generation what we've learned. I think she does that when she mentors young people within her company, but also in the work that she does every day in the community.
She's got this passion that just, makes you feel so comfortable with her because she cares about our community. She wants to do the right thing. It's her work that's been able to help us make a difference in terms of Latino voting, in terms of educational outcomes for Latinos, and in terms of now focusing on healthcare and ensuring that Latinos have access to quality, affordable healthcare across the country. So she's had a big impact, and it's a great question. I think when you really step back and look at her career and look at how many lives she's touched, it's well into the millions of people. It's an amazing accomplishment, an amazing woman, and I'm glad to be a friend.
What I've learned from Ivelisse is that we've all been given opportunities to develop our professional careers and to make an impact in our work, but how we use that to advance social causes, how we use that to make sure that we are able to be socially responsible, I think that's the epitome of Ivelisse's career.
Sometimes when we're working hard and fighting in the trenches to advance the cause, we forget to honor the people who've made such a huge difference. Ivelisse is definitely one of those individuals who's been with us from the beginning, has been there consistently, has always cared about what's right for our communities, and now she's getting recognized finally. It's well deserved, and congratulations to her.
Passionate, committed, y una boricua que se come al mundo. Ladies and gentlemen, MALDEF is proud to present its Excellence in Community Service Award to Ivelisse Estrada.
Muchas gracias. As you can see, I brought all my fans. Muchas gracias. Good evening, and this is really, the first time I see it, thank you. It's really muy emotivo, ¿no? So, muchísimas gracias. I am truly honored to receive the MALDEF Excellence in Community Service Award, and I'm very humbled by this recognition. I'm always behind the scenes, so I'm not very comfortable being up here, but I truly, truly appreciate being recognized. I want to congratulate my fellow honorees, all shining examples of ethical leadership, the Honorable Ricardo Urbina, a fellow Boricua, and Antonia Hernandez, a longtime friend who has excelled in public service, civil rights, and philanthropy. I was telling Tom earlier that MALDEF outdid itself this year because we have two Boricuas, Mexicana, so see? I was exposed to public service at a very young age. My mother was a social worker. I remember visiting some of her clients in their humble dwellings and listening to their stories and seeing my mother's always looking for ways to help. I realized that sometimes you just need to listen and show people the way, and then they move forward to improve their lives and that of their families. Although I studied literature with the goal of teaching at the university, life threw me a curveball, and my life changed. As the cantautor Ruben Blades said in his famous song, La vida te da sorpresas. I was living here in DC and was offered the opportunity to work with the first Spanish language national news program, Noticiero SN, where I met my good friend of many years, Debbie Durham, still the Noticiero Nacional bureau chief here in DC, and joining us here tonight. Gracias, Debbie. By the way, this is also the city where I met my husband, Leo Estrada, who has always been very, very supportive of my efforts. Gracias, Leo. I was fascinated with the power of television, the opportunity it gave us to reach so many people, to reach a community growing rapidly and in need of so much. Through our news programs, we're able not only to inform our viewers about local events and issues affecting their countries of origin, like a disaster or elections, but also the score of a soccer game. You know how important that is. But most importantly, connect our audience with the resources available that could help them solve the challenges they faced, or at the very least, where to look for solutions. In other words, the ability to inform and provide access, thus empowering our community, because information is power, isn't it? I am privileged to work for a company that for over 50 years has demonstrated a true commitment to the U.S. Hispanic community. With the great work of my team and the support of so many at Univision, from our big jefe, our CEO, Randy Falco, my boss, Bob Llamas, Executive Vice President, Human Resources and Empowerment Officer, also joining us here tonight. Gracias, Bob. My good friend, Maria Elena Salinas, and so very committed and passionate employees. We are making a difference for our country and for our community. Our CEO always reminds us that the top priority for Univision is the community we serve. Without the connection with our community and the service we provide, we would be like anyone else. Most importantly, I am privileged to serve a community whose tenacity, hard work, and constant desire to advance and improve their lives inspires me every day. I recently got an email from a Univision colleague sharing a news story about a Latino business owner from Los Angeles thanking our local affiliate, KMEX, for coordinating a financial fair where he got the information, encouragement, and confidence he needed to take his small business to the next level. In less than a year after that fair, the business owner was able to bring the value of his small company from $25,000 to over $1 million. It's a great reminder of how much these fairs, PSAs, tools, and stories can inspire people, my colleague said. It makes me really proud to work for a company that has this kind of positive impact in the community. Or the note we got from a Latina who attended one of our health fairs, where she got a free mammogram that showed a small tumor in its early stage. She received the treatment she needed and was looking forward to a healthy future. Or the letter we got on our education Facebook page from a mother expressing her gratitude for our education initiative. And I quote, "In those moments where we easily lose faith, I wanted to share our experience, not only as a Hispanic family, but also as a family who is celebrating for the first time the graduation from college of our daughter, Andrea. It is our wish to give you, all the ones that are working in this campaign, to Hispanic families, and above all, to all students, faith and hope, because yes, you can. Sí se puede." The businessman, the woman at the health fair, the proud mother, they are my motivation to continue on this journey, a journey that has led me to believe, to pursue and be inspired, one that reminds me to embrace surprises, to open our doors as wide as I can and let our community tell us their stories. Because when we allow that, when we do this, they will always show us the way. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much, querida Evelis. Thank you so much. Thank you. Gracias por todo lo que haces. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for keeping us grounded and for always reminding us that it is about the community. And also, thank you for your continued commitment to ensuring that organizations such as MALDEF have the resources necessary to defend Latinos everywhere. Now, it is my honor to introduce our next award recipient, the Honorable Judge Ricardo Urbina. Judge Urbina was appointed to the United States District Court in July of 1994 after serving as a District of Columbia Superior Court judge for 13 years. He graduated with honors from Georgetown University in 1967 and completed his law studies at the Georgetown University Law Center in 1970. He served as staff attorney for the D.C. Public Defender Service from 1970 to 1972 and then entered private practice. From 1974 to 81, he taught at Howard University Law School and directed the university's criminal justice program. In addition to full-time teaching responsibilities, he tried civil and criminal cases until President Reagan appointed him to the Superior Court bench in April of 1981. Judge Urbina served as the chief presiding judge of the court's family division from 1985 to 1988. Throughout his career, Judge Urbina has been recognized for his extraordinary commitment to public service and support toward the Hispanic community, both within the legal world and beyond. Let's take a look at Judge Urbina's video profile.
I first met Ricardo Urbina in 1967. We were both in law school. We were both looking for part-time jobs during the school year. We ended up working together as messengers for what is now one of the largest law firms in the world.
I had just arrived, to DC from law school, and I was looking for a placement. And so I decided to attend a Hispanic Bar Association networking reception, and the president of the bar actually introduced me to Judge Urbina.
I think I probably know him best from his teaching at the law school, and one of the most difficult tasks that I had as Associate Dean was trying to figure out how not to award him the Distinguished Adjunct Teaching Award every year.
He is a very stern judge to appear before, and he's very, very formal.
That he had this powerful presence, right? He's tall, he's elegant, he's very judicial, serious.
Only after several weeks did I learn that this nice, quiet person was an all-America athlete. He was then training for the 1968 Olympics. He never talked about it. He was just so modest and unassuming. Just a nice guy.
When I got to know him later, he's actually quite a warm and engaging person.
Started telling stories and talking about his family, and I knew right away this is the person I wanted to work for. Judge Urbina is the exemplary model for how all of us should be not only practicing law, but in leading our professions, but leading our lives.
To serve as a role model for Latino lawyers throughout the country as someone who worked hard and achieve major success. I mean, all those things come together in my mind to define Ricardo Urbina.
The thing I learned the most from him is that no matter what you have on your to-do list, no matter what your responsibilities are at work and at home, that it's still required. You have a responsibility to the community to do something to help bring those behind you.
When I wanted advice, when I wanted guidance as a new judge, Judge Urbina was always one of the people I went to because I knew he was going to draw on his years of experience and he would be very thoughtful and constructive in what he advised me to do or not to do or how to approach problems.
Here I was, this young Chicanita from the border town in San Diego, coming to the nation's capital, and to clerk for a big federal judge like Judge Urbina would be quite a challenge, but he always gave me confidence, always gave me strength. He always believed in me, and that helped me believe in myself.
He has helped me out so tremendously over the course of my career, so much so that now I hold the position at the district court that he held in large parts of his efforts.
You've taught me to just never give up, but always give back to others. Muchas gracias, thank you for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming el señor juez, Ricardo Urbina.
I don't have much to say. It's all been said, and I'm just tremendously grateful to be here. But in recognizing this very special moment, I want to speak very briefly about how my roots grew into the tree that I now occupy. Cuando mis padres llegaron aquí de Puerto Rico y Honduras, they had a dream. It was the American dream. for themselves and especially for their children, the ones that would follow. They did their part to acquire the benefits of this promised land, constantly reinforcing love of country, love of my people, and constantly looking to the people that we were kindred to as part of the culture that we were required to develop. They worked hard, they were relentless, they worked with great honesty, they were inspired by a vision of a better tomorrow for themselves and for their family. They earnestly believed, as Dr. King would remind us later, that a dream is a reality waiting to happen. But how could anyone have foreseen that my parents' humble efforts to advance themselves and educate their children and thereby foster an environment for prosperity would someday result in this? I accept this acknowledgement of my career, my work, in the name of every single person in this room. For indeed, it's been the unceasing success of the Latino community and its tender altruism that has inspired me every step of the way. I have never felt alone. I thank all of you who are responsible for this wonderful moment, including, but not limited to, as we lawyers like to say, Thomas Sanz, David Figueroa, Cynthia Gutierrez, and of course the board of MALDEF. But before closing, I want to make a couple of special recognitions. I want to recognize my brother Luis Urbina, who is here tonight, my older brother, who decided to come to DC to watch his little brother get an award. My daughter, Adrian, who is here, and my niece, Brianna Urbina, who is also here, a newly minted attorney in the District of Columbia. But now I want to thank my wife, Corinne, who has been my guide, my friend, and my love through the many years of struggle in raising a family, keeping me humble, and never letting me falter. Thank you.
Thank you for those beautiful words of inspiration. Thank you so much, Juez Urbina, for being such an inspiration and role model to Latinos across our nation. Tonight is an occasion for both remembering the victories of the past and committing to creating more triumphs in the future. In particular, this year, we recall the record. Antonia Hernandez, MALDEF's former president and general counsel, in whose honor we renamed our Washington, D.C. office earlier today. MALDEF's office in Washington, D.C. is now known as the Antonia Hernandez Regional Office and Policy Center. Antonia championed the creation of a permanent MALDEF presence in this city because of her own professional experience living here and working with many of you to help craft a better America. Now, nationally recognized for her commitment toward the betterment of underserved communities in Los Angeles and beyond, Antonia Hernandez joined the California Community Foundation as president and chief executive officer in 2004. Established in 1915, the California Community Foundation is one of the largest and most active philanthropic organizations in Southern California, with assets of nearly $1.4 billion. In partnership with its more than 1,700 individual, family, and corporate donors, the foundation supports nonprofit organizations and public institutions with funds from health and human services, affordable housing, early childhood education, community, arts and culture, and other areas of need. Previously, Antonia was president and general counsel of the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Education Fund, MALDEF, as we know, of course, the national nonprofit litigation and advocacy organization that's dedicated to protecting the civil rights of the nation's Latinos through the legal system, community education, and research and policy initiatives. An expert in philanthropy, civil rights, and immigration issues, Antonia began her legal career as a staff attorney with the Los Angeles Center for Law and Justice and worked as counsel to the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary before joining MALDEF in 1981 as regional counsel in Washington, D.C. She's a member of the board of directors of the National American Automobile Association, the Automobile Club of Southern California, Council of Foundations, Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. How do you do this? Wow. Grammy in America and Blue Shield of California Foundations. Wow, another superwoman. She currently serves on the Commission on Presidential Debates, the Los Angeles 2020 Commission, the JFK Library Foundation Profile and Courage Award Committee, and the UCLA Board of Advisors, among others. Let's take a look at MALDEF's special recognition video.
I served on the board of MALDEF with Valerie Cantor, who is an extraordinary person, and after whom this award is named. And there are a few people who I think I would put in this group of incredible achievement and dedication over such a long period of time as Antonia Hernandez.
She's an immigrant from Mexico. We talk about it an awful lot. She's so very close to her family.
She and her family sold tamales around central Los Angeles. They were an immigrant family and a family that is very unified, very united, and who have all been very successful due to the hard work and guidance of their parents.
She grew up and was raised with a dedication to community, with a dedication to family, and I think she then defined family beyond her immediate family, including her, of course, her husband and children. But she defined family to extend to the rest of the Latino community, and indeed the rest of the community of people in the United States who face discrimination and oppression.
I come to think of her as the happy warrior. She is no doubt totally committed to her work. She's persistent, and the fact that she's smiling and being so sparkling, you cannot underestimate how much she wants to get her job done.
Her leadership was one of the most dramatic leaderships that we've had in all of MALDEF. I think that when the founders started MALDEF, they were looking at the kind of leadership skills that Antonia brought.
That long tenure means that Antonia was directly involved in a number of critical cases in all of our areas of endeavor, from education to immigrants' rights, to employment, to voting rights, to all of the important policy work in those areas and others accomplished in Washington and state capitals.
One of her great legacies is the acquisition of this building, which is a landmark historic building in Los Angeles, and the great courage to have made that financial commitment to acquire this building.
Well, I think that Antonia recognized an opportunity to ensure the financial stability of MALDEF through the acquisition of this building over the long term. And I can certainly attest to the fact that on more than one occasion, the building really has provided that critical support of the financial well-being of the organization that is so important to its survival. Well, I think that anyone who reviews Antonia's career would have to note that over 18 years leading a national civil rights organization is an extraordinary accomplishment.
And Antonia, I'm sure not just all of us here, but your beautiful familia is very proud of you tonight and always. Please join me in welcoming that beautiful smile of Antonia Hernandez.
Well, I first want to thank you. First, to thank Tom and David for giving me an opportunity to bring my family together. And like many of us, our kids are scattered all over the country. Michael from New York, Ben here in DC, and Marisa and my wonderful husband, Michael. Thank you very much for reuniting us. I'm also a new grandmother, so I'm over the moon. And as I tell people, if I weren't a troublemaking civil rights lawyer, I'd be in real estate. So I really want to thank you for this recognition and this honor. Maldiv has a special place in my heart, as you know. And people often ask me where this passion comes from, where the belly, the fire in the belly is. Most Maldefinados, we call ourselves Maldefinados, the Maldefians, where that fire in the belly comes from. And I will tell you, number one, it comes from who we are. I am an immigrant from Mexico. My father was born in Texas, and during the 30s, he ended up in Mexico. We all know of the deportations that happened in the 30s and the 50s. I say this not as a sense of, the tragedy of the many people that have been deported. Because if my daddy had not and his family ended up in Mexico, I would not be here today. But to say that as much as things change, they remain the same. If you look at the issues that Maldiv is struggling with, they're the issues that we have been struggling with all of our lives: immigration, education, and exclusion. And I would say to all of you, the battle for civil rights does not come free. It has a cost, a human cost and a financial cost. And I want you to think about this. All of us who have made it through the struggles of our predecessors, pay up. Pay up till it hurts. Because the struggle is an important struggle that goes on. And secondly, as we talk about where our community is. Yes, the glass is half full, but we have a long ways to go. And we must recognize that our advancement, and we are here as the elite of our community, was paved by the struggle of others, and that there are so many others behind us. Whether it's, Puertorriqueños, Salvadoreños, Mexicanos, de Argentina, wherever we come from, they don't see the difference. They paint us with the same brush. And to the degree that we are painted as not contributors, it inhibits our ability to move forward. So don't think you're special. We need to advance and elevate and pull up all of those others that are before us. And don't think that immigration does not touch you. It is very much linked to who we are. And so my message to you is, please remember who we are. And there's this old cliche that the advancements of the Latino community is it's touched and parallel to the advancement of American society. We are a growing demographic, pero no nos sirve nada if we're poor and marginal and outside the stream of society. And as we grow, the future of American society is tied to the future of the Latino community. And so it is our obligation to make sure that our community advances together. I thank Tom, and I consider Tom my baby, and I embarrass him, and Marisa, and all the Maldefinado attorneys, and all of the board members who devote their life to the advancement of civil rights. And I acknowledge my partner organizations, the Raza Habla Council of La Raza, NALEO, LULAC, because together we serve a purpose. And together we must march together, because in unison there is power. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Antonia, for your strong leadership and service to MALDEF. And before we go on, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of course, everybody here is a VIP and everybody's important, but we would like to welcome Congressman Becerra, who's here, Congressman Cardenas, and also State Senator Torres. Thank you. Now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing a leader who has dedicated his life's work to advancing the rights of Latinos in our country. He is one of our nation's most respected and experienced civil rights lawyers, and he's responsible for many of MALDEF's renowned settlements and courtroom victories on behalf of the Latino community. I believe the Latino community is fortunate to have him leading MALDEF. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage MALDEF's President and General Counsel, Tom Sainz.
So note to self, never schedule your speech to immediately follow the bosses. What an electrifying evening. And thank you, each and every one of you, for being a part of this evening. I know that we have just acknowledged a few of the elected officials. I know there are others in the audience equally worthy of recognition. There are leaders from our fellow civil rights organizations around the room. There are individuals who, through the work that they do daily, are contributing to that common mission of ensuring that our nation lives up to its ideals and incorporates the great strength of our Latino community. I begin, as always, this evening with some notes of gratitude. First of all, thank you very much, Maria Elena Salinas, for leading us this evening. Your passion for our community definitely shows in everything that you do, as we saw this evening. Thank you, even though he is now left, to the inspiring Secretary Tom Vilsack, whose message is one of enduring value and connection between communities and between individuals, whether those like him who were born to orphanage or those like us who thrive on the strength of community. We have a common endeavor that unites us toward a bright future. His pioneering work in ensuring that what would seem to us in this room to be so obvious, in ensuring that the Forest Service would no longer use Border Patrol as interpreters, translators, is really extraordinary. Now, it's in some ways saddening, bracing, that here in 2014, we're acknowledging a cabinet secretary for that leadership. But leadership it is. Long overdue leadership, but leadership that we value and that strengthens our common endeavor. And of course, I want to join in once more congratulating our inspiring honorees. Ivelisse Estrada, who through her commitment, who through her hard work, who through her leadership has not only contributed to the advancement of the Latino community, but really, with her creativity as the importance and depth of the Latino, Spanish language, and bilingual media has increased across the country, Ivelisse has established a different model of media connection to community, of passion for change and a positive future. Thank you and congratulations, Ivelisse. Judge Ricardo Urbina, who through decades of a career as a jurist and a lawyer has demonstrated what quiet commitment to ensuring at the most powerful levels of our society that a perspective, an experience, a knowledge of the Latino community can make ripples of change, of progress for all of us. Thank you very much, Judge Urbina, and congratulations. What can one say about the boss? The inimitable, our own Antonia Hernandez. Antonia, one measure of her significant contribution over her record-breaking tenure at MALDEF is how much every one of us, former and current Maldefians, recall some of the things that she said. Now, we have to admit, some of them were malapropisms, but so many of them were profound, pithy demonstrations of the critical importance of our work. And one that we often invoke at MALDEF is when Antonia would frequently say, usually on celebrating the long contributions of someone leaving our service, once a Maldefian, always a Maldefian. And Antonia, as you know, today we named an office after you. I can think of no better demonstration of the fact that in your case, once a Maldefian, always a Maldefian, in bricks and mortar in this case, but continuing with your spirit to the important work that we do. Thank you and congratulations. I am so gratified that so many of our MALDEF Board of Directors, members, present and past, are here today. They're here, I know, to celebrate Antonia, but they're here also in solidarity with the ongoing work of the DC office that was so important to her, in honor of the ongoing work throughout the country that our litigators and policy advocates engage in on a daily basis. If I could ask our former and current Board of Directors members, led of course by our board chair, Charlene Aguilar, who you heard from, if our board members could stand and receive our thanks for your ongoing support of our efforts. The electricity in this room comes not just from the spark plugs who have inspired us with their words, but from the planning, from the hard practice, from the execution that creates such beautiful events. So as always, I want to thank the MALDEF team, led by David Damian Figueroa, joined by Cynthia Gutierrez, Stephanie Loera, Jose Delgado, and all of the others who have made this such a memorable evening. It seems as though whenever we're here in Washington, D.C., it's on the occasion of an auspicious anniversary. And that is true again this year. In 4 days, on Saturday, we will mark the 60th anniversary of a tremendously important and foundational civil rights case. That case is Hernandez versus Texas. I fooled some of you, I know. Because 2 weeks after that, we will also mark the 60th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. But Hernandez versus Texas was the first occasion for the Supreme Court to directly address the widespread phenomenon of ongoing discrimination throughout the Southwest and in pockets around the country of ongoing segregation and discrimination against the Latino community. Confronting it in the context of jury exclusion, where the state of Texas sought to hide behind a new classification of Latinos as quote unquote white to defend and perpetuate ongoing patterns of exclusion from criminal juries. The Supreme Court unanimously decided, just as it would in Brown 2 weeks later, that it must reject that continued pattern of racial discrimination and recognize that our Constitution, in its best values, in its Equal Protection Clause, could not permit that kind of discrimination to continue. But as we recognize and celebrate Hernandez versus Texas and Brown versus Board of Education, we are faced, just within the last week, by a new Supreme Court majority that seems intent on denying the continued phenomenon dealt with at Hernandez, on denying that we have not achieved the equal educational opportunity promised by Brown versus Board of Education, that seems intent on ignoring history, social context, and practical reality lived by people around this country in its decision-making. In the Schuette case out of Michigan, we had a majority of the Supreme Court that sought to deny that we continue to face discrimination, exclusion, and simply bad policy making in the name of ensuring that the status quo continues, of ensuring that the promise of equal educational opportunity, of the promise of true equality is deferred ever longer. 60 years since Hernandez and Brown. In 2 years, our nation will celebrate 240 years of existence. That means, even if you credit the entire 60 years, 1/4 of our nation's existence has been in what could be called a civil rights era. But we all know that it's not really 60 years, that following Hernandez and Brown, the strength, the ingrained resistance, passive and aggressive, to ensuring the equality promised by our Constitution delayed the true beginning of the civil rights era. At best, we could say that 1/5 of our nation's existence has been under what could be called a civil rights era. And we must unanimously declare that that is not nearly enough for the life of civil rights in this country. We must reject the ahistorical analysis that characterizes too many Supreme Court opinions. We must proclaim that civil rights has a longer life. And in the Latino community, as we work together, MALDEF with our partner organizations represented around this room and throughout the country, to devise and strengthen a civil rights era for the next 50 years that will serve our communities writ large, including those immigrants who are as American as anyone through their contributions and their sacrifices, but who have done so without protections of legal papers. We must work together to ensure that our Voting Rights Act is repaired, is revived, is rejuvenated after the year-ago assault by the Supreme Court majority in Shelby County to strike down that most powerful of civil rights tools, the preclearance obligation. We must demand that that rejuvenation, revivification occur immediately. We can brook no longer the delay that has characterized the Congress's consideration or non-consideration, as it were, of the critically important Voting Rights Act amendments. We must demand the full response to the Latino vote of November 2012 in the enactment of immigration reform. We can no longer tolerate as a nation the continued removal and deportation of peaceful migrants who have done nothing but act in the traditions of this nation and our Constitution by coming here to work hard, to educate their children, to raise families, to ensure the prosperity of this nation for everyone. We could talk further about educational opportunity and the opportunity that we must make real as we implement the Common Core across the country, the opportunity that we must make real in the aftermath of Shuti, the reality that we depend upon ensuring that every child has the free opportunity, has the pathway to contribute everything they can to their families and to our development. But in the Latino community, we know from experience, personal and community, that whatever blows they may deal us, we will prevail. Antonia's poignant story about an earlier deportation in her family that made possible her leadership, continuing leadership of the civil rights struggle in our nation. It epitomizes at a personal and family level the message that even when they deal us defeats, we know that we can and will respond to our better angels and ensure a nation that serves all of us, including the descendants of those who would oppress, including the descendants of those who would harass. We will secure a better America for all of us. Now, the community example that I must cite stems from an opportunity that Antonia gave me as a young attorney at MALDEF to participate in a broad-based challenge to California's Proposition 187. The clearest precursor of SB 1070 in our recent history, a law that would have deprived everyone in California of rights to public service, from education through healthcare, through social services, and even public safety. But out of Proposition 187, our community wrought a great victory. California is a different state today than it was 20 years ago. It is progressive. It is making strides in ensuring that immigrants are integrated regardless of their status. It is working to ensure, through state voting rights legislation, that every Californian has their right and opportunity to participate protected. That is a victory out of that defeat that our community made. Now, this is not the reckless bring it on that a former president gave us. This is not some hubristic inevitability of our triumph, not by any means. It is a recognition that through hard work, dedication, collaboration, our community can create great victories regardless of what is dealt us. As Antonia so directly, inimitably, and candidly explained, it takes hard work to make a civil rights reality. But at MALDEF, we know that with the support of each and every one of you, with your collaboration and partnership, we know that no matter what defeat they may seek to lay before us, we will create a broader victory that assures the ascendance of the values, the universally held values in our Constitution and in our humanity. And with that goal in mind, we look forward to working with all of you toward that great national community end. Good evening.
Thank you so much. Impressive, Tom, impressive. Before we say goodbye, can we look at the screen to see how much money we have been able to raise tonight through messages? Let's see if we can take a look at that number. Also, we'd like to remind you, since we're in the social media era, to follow MALDEF at MALDEF, M-A-L-D-E-F. So hopefully we can see, we can't, not yet. No, that's me. Oh my God, let me comb my hair. Okay. See myself in the monitor. Anyway, hopefully before the end of the night, before we all leave here, we can see just how much money we have been able to raise tonight through text messages. Again, once more time, let's give a big round of applause to each of our guest speakers. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's program. Thank you so much to all of you for supporting MALDEF's 2014 Washington, D.C. Awards Gala. MALDEF recognizes the privilege it is to enjoy the ongoing support of so many capable and wise partners. So thank you for your ongoing commitment to MALDEF's work nationwide and for your particular support of the arduous work that it does. Gracias por invitarme. Que pasen una linda noche. Un abrazo. There we are, 5,510. That's how much we've raised tonight. Buenas noches y muchas gracias.
Mira que en esta vida pena hay bastante. No me dejaré hundir. No, 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 me voy para adelante. Que mi canto suba, que mi son se oiga, que mi canto